Sound art is a product that is a speaker and it's art. We combine it together and we call it sound art. What makes it so unique that any picture can be your speaker? Sound art gives you the high quality sound without the ugly speaker. This isn't a picture with a speaker, the picture is the speaker. Just imagine your wedding picture uploaded onto a canvas and now it's speaking 10,000 tunes. I mean, it's a very cool concept. What we like so much about it that you can take anything that means something very special to you, upload it on the canvas, have it hanging up in your room, your balcony, wherever you want to put it, and now it's a speaker. I mean, how cool is that? It's something that we have that and no one has. No one has this product. It's just a great gift to give anybody. It's just a neat concept. Around here we say, art never sounded so good.
After months of quarantine, we're all interested in how we can become our best self. The team at Permanent Makeup and Cryo is here to help you get the flawless makeup look every day without the extra effort or time. When it comes to your appearance, you deserve the best care that money can buy.
4 races are in the books for the 2021 Pacific Challenge GT3 Series, and Jesse Webb has been on fire. After capturing victories at Donington, Belle Isle, and Spa, Webb now holds a 33-point lead over his closest pursuer in Chris Beats, who's the only other driver to grab a win so far this season. Now the series shifts over to Imola, a track that is known for being incredibly unforgiving at times, and where continued risk is the only pathway to the ultimate goal of a victory. Will Webb and Beats continue to stand tall as the lone winners on the season through the first 5 events, or will a third name adorn the top step of the podium after the 60-minute contest in Italy? This is round 5 of the 2021 Pacific Challenge GT3 Series, and it's coming at you live on Pit Stop TV. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Autodromo Internazionale Enzo E. Dino Ferrari circuit. It's going to be the one and only time that I give you the full name of it. We're going to call it Imola, the historic track that's been around for almost 50 years. First began hosting Formula One races back in 1980. It disappeared from the F1 calendar in the mid-2000s, made a return to the slate due to the schedule changes, and tonight it plays host to one of the most competitive GT series on the sim, and we are happy to be bringing you all the action. However, this is not a one-man band. As a matter of fact, I couldn't do it without my partners on the evening, including that of Trey Shuttlesworth, who will join me on the mic tonight. We'll hear from Trey momentarily. Emerson Arden handling our production duties, and Corey Rexford, as always, doing a spectacular job across all of our social media platforms. Now, before we turn our attention to tonight's racing event, I want to remind everybody that if you have not done so already, check out some of the social media content we'll be delivering tonight. Share the stream, share the race, because I promise it's going to be a thriller, especially when we're talking about Imola as the destination for tonight's 60-minute event. Now, Trey, we're going to welcome you to the broadcast booth. First of all, thank you for joining us here tonight. I know that this is a series in which you have participated on the call of races for in the past, but before we came on air, man, Imola, there's something special about this track with all the history that is behind it, sometimes good, sometimes not so good, but nevertheless, it's challenging. First off, welcome to the booth. Second off, what could we expect tonight?
Yeah, firstly, thank you for welcoming me, Eric, to the broadcast booth. And I think overall, this is the second week in a row we're working with this combination. Awesome to have Emerson working production and Corey working behind the scenes in terms of our social media content tonight. But yeah, when I think of, the term for an old school European racing circuit, this is the track that immediately comes to mind. It does have some chicanes to break things up that you might not have seen 20 or 30 years ago, but it's still high speed in a lot of places with deep braking zones to go for overtaking opportunities. And unlike a lot of its counterparts in the continent of Europe, there really is not a lot of forgiveness in terms of runoff here. You do have some AstroTurf and some paved runoff in certain sections, but then there's also components of the circuit where the only really leeway you have if there's a screw up in, whether it be mid apex or on exit, you might just have a little bit of curving to assist you. So you have to be on your toes across the course of an entire lap here, because a mistake is going to be punished, whether it be small or large.
Yeah, and speaking of the track, we'll actually take a quick look at the track map and track description that we have available here. 3+ miles, just over 3 miles. iRacing considers it to be 3.05 miles. And depending on where you look, their track map will say 17 turns. Most of the other ones that we'll take a look at, like the one we have here, calls it 19. Nevertheless, it's challenging. And Trey, you mentioned the fact that some of these elements of the race venue were kind of added over the years as, pretty much safety enhancements. As a matter of fact, there's a nice video from iRacing when they introduced this track to the platform that kind of talks about how some of these corners came about. But the biggest things that I happen to take away from here are the Variante Alta and the Variante Bassa, who are the two sets of chicanes, one of which right before the start-finish line, the other one on the backside of the course turns 14 and 15, and they really stand out as some of the most obvious of passing zones. But there are other areas of the racetrack that I'm sure these drivers are going to pencil in as being specific areas to either perfect on track or perhaps the best spot in order to overtake or make a move on their competition.
Yeah, just going off of my small sample size of watching events here, the only race I've actually seen here, whether it be, virtually on the iRacing.com platform or in real life, was when Formula One made its return last year. And it was a combination that didn't lead to a massive amount of overtakes, but that was probably just due to a combination of things, such as how large those cars are and how turbulent air has such a strong effect with those vehicles. But I think with these GT3 vehicles, you can create a lot of natural opportunities for overtake that might not even require, massive mistakes of the driver ahead of you. I do definitely think of the Variant Tamburello, which is the first chicane. That's the lead up to that is the most high-speed portion of this racing circuit. And then, as you said, the Variante Alta, and then I also think the Aqua Minerale might offer itself up to some overtaking opportunities, although that is going to be a place where it's going to be incredibly daring to try to make it happen.
Stark contrast to what we had a week ago in our first endurance race on the season. 90 minutes we did at Spa, where passing was at a little bit of a premium. Also, if you go back 2 weeks to Belle Isle, Detroit, here I think we have plenty of chances to see some drivers work their way up through the field if they do not have the best of run and qualifying. And that's a look at the venue that we're going to be running on here tonight. Now, in our lead-in, we talked about the championship point standings. And Trey, it's been all about two guys for the most part. We talked about the top two in the standings, only two winners on the season. You see it there in Jesse Webb and Chris Beats. Everybody else looking to at least get a taste of victory as we will be eclipsing the halfway point of the season following tonight's race. But wow, I mean, Webb has been impressive. And, don't take anything away from Beats, because even though he's only got one win while Webb has the other three, in all the races that Webb has won, Beats has finished second. So these two pretty much in a league of their own, which, coming into this season, Trey, by courtesy of the press release you put together for us to kind of preview things, these were two of the three names that, you kind of mentioned we had to keep our eye on, and we're starting to see why. Oh,
yeah, of course. As you said, Eric, they were a couple of the drivers that are rookies to the series this year. And I wouldn't look at the term rookie as really indicating a lack of experience. It's just that this is their first go around in this combination of drivers and tracks. So yeah, all around, I think they've proven in it's been 4 rounds so far, that they definitely have some of the best pace, best talent in the series. But there's definitely still guys like James Hansen and Chris Brunnemer that are showing that they do have pretty close pace, missing a little bit, but I think there will be opportunities throughout the rest of the season for them to get it back up there and challenge. It's going to be tough for them to get back up there in the championship without probably some unfortunate circumstances for the top two. And in fact, the top two, I believe, have been the only drivers to finish first and second in a race so far. So that would mean that Webb has finished first 3 times, second once, and then, vice versa for Chris Beats. The only other person that I really think's come close to challenging is Nick Ledecky, who was in a good place at Road America, before an incident.
Yeah, you mentioned Ledecky. You see him there 9th in the standings, and that's considering the fact that he crashed out of Road America while leading, finished 37th, and he did not race at the event that was held last week at Spa. So he's still retaining a spot, top 10 in points. Reason being, his 2 finishes of the races where he did make it home to the checkered flag, both third-place finishes, both podiums. So he's going to be looking for more of that here. And so far, he's been quick throughout the practice session. As you see, the diverse nature of this field. And the other item we want to highlight, there's the top 10 in points. This is a split-class series as far as how they're tallying up to certain groups of drivers. It's based on iRating for the most part, but the top 10 all happen to be pros. We want to note that the highest running amateur racer is 11th in points, and that is Spencer Vick. We will highlight that as well as the race goes on. So that's a look at how we got here. 4 races into the 2021 slate for this sector of the Pacific Challenge GT3 Series. Let's talk about tonight. Practice went off just a little while earlier. As a matter of fact, we're just past the halfway point in qualifying with about 7.5 minutes to go. And no surprise, look who is atop the pylon, Jesse Webb and Chris Beats. Now the saving grace here is that margin between first and second is about 2.5 tenths tighter than what it was in practice. Webb had nearly a half second on the field at the end of the practice session. You see that Beats has been able to close it up a little bit in this qualifying session for now, and Chris Brunnemer holds down that 3rd spot. We mentioned Nick Ledecky. He was actually one of the quickest cars in practice as well. He's only 7th on the qualifying charts, and I'll tell you what, considering the fact, Trey, average lap times here about a minute 42 plus seconds, for the majority of the field, it's over a minute 43. If you get out now and get caught in traffic, it could pretty much be the end of this qualifying session, because this track, relatively narrow, hard to get around somebody if you're on a bit of a flyer, hard to get out of the way if you're not. The last few moments, I should say, of this qualifying session are going to prove very important for the drivers who have not laid down a lap in which they're comfortable with.
Yeah, it's a really tough track all around in terms of how you approach qualifying. You brought up a lot of good points, and it's tough because it combines elements of a circuit that has a lot that's very slipstream dependent, and also almost elements of a street circuit with a lot of slow, tight corners. Because there's a lot of sections where it's quite difficult as a driver to try to get out of the way of a driver who's on a hot lap if you're just trying to get up to pace. But then there's also a lot of spots on the racetrack where if you're the leading car, you could be sacrificing a lot of slipstream to the car behind you, and you could be giving an opportunity for the car behind you to gain multiple tenths over the course of a lap. Think the front straightaway going along the Variante Bassa, or there's other portions of the racetrack where the slipstream are going to play a critical factor over the course of a lap. And then, like you said, it's not a short lap by any means. So these guys are definitely starting to run out of time.
So as you can see on the top left-hand portion of your screen, we are under 5.5 minutes to go. A couple of drivers not having as much luck as they would want to have there. As you saw a stationary car there on driver's left. But this is the guy. This is the man of the series right now in Jesse Webb. And we've had a lot of opportunities to talk to him following his successes. We mentioned the 3 victories in 4 races. The one race he did not win, he came in second. So we pretty much got a chance to talk to Jesse for the last 4 weeks or so. And I would say that odds are a little bit high as he runs wide there as he comes to the left-hander that we may be talking to him again, but it seems as though he has yet to become in any facet complacent in his success. And it's pretty much evident by how hard he's pushing every time out on the racetrack. It's not very often that we ever see him lay back or conserve. Even if he is, he does a great job at hiding it. It should be another point to remind everybody that for these normal 60-minute events, pit strategy comes into play. And last week, the big conversation in the 90-minute event at Spa was, would they have to pit more than once? And it turned out that most drivers were able to perfect the one-stop strategy. Only time we saw somebody come down pit road more than once was to repair damage. Tonight, though, we're back to the same pit window and strategy that we had for the first few races, or the first 3 races of the season, which has been rather interesting. Trey, the one and only pit stop we could expect to see as far as fuel is concerned, it opens up an opportunity for mistakes. Whether it's drivers who miscalculate the fuel load, maybe pick the wrong strategy versus the undercut or the overcut. It's hard to believe that in a 60-minute race like this, where you may only have to stop once for fuel, that can truly be the make or break reason as to whether or not you end up on the top side of the timing and scoring charts or the bottom side. How important is that going to be here tonight, especially at a track like Imola?
I think you'll see a lot of similarities with just about any other road circuit. There's a lot of opportunities for a driver to gain a lot of time coming into the pit entry, because oftentimes pit entry lanes offer a lot of opportunity to perhaps gain a little bit of advantage. It really depends on how aggressive you want to be coming to that timing line. And then once you get there, you just need to ensure that you're accurately getting onto your pit limiter. And in certain scenarios, drivers are actually able to not utilize their pit limiter and go slightly over what their pit limiter offers in terms of pace and actually gain a little bit of time there. And another way that you can gain or lose time is putting in the correct amount of fuel. You don't want to put in not enough fuel so that you run out of fuel before you get to the end of the race, but you also don't want to put in too much fuel, because that could be a way to lose valuable seconds. And when you're undergoing a portion of the race where that strategy is so crucial, that could end up being multiple positions on the racetrack. And then it's not going to be as dangerous as what we saw in the opening round at Donington, but the pit exit here at Imola does come right out into the racing line here. So that could be a little bit dangerous and a little bit sketchy for these drivers. That's also something that these drivers will have to take into account at the race today.
And it was one of the things that we noted Jesse Webb was doing in the practice session, practicing his pit in and pit out, and really not allowing any box to not be checked as far as his preparation for tonight's racing event. He doesn't want to leave any loose ends. You just had an opportunity there to see a shot of that pit exit as Chris Beets goes by, and Beets has been attacking the curbs hard as he came through the chicane the last time through. And you can see why, because Webb has laid down an even faster lap time with 1.5 minutes plus to go in the qualifying session. Here's Webb now following another competitor. Also Beets in that second spot. Nick Ledecky, your top 3, pretty much as they came to the checkered flag for one of the front-running races at Donington Park. Our season opener was this running order, and the three drivers we mentioned we're going to keep our eye on. Chris Brunnemer, one of the highest-running competitors who wrapped up a solid season in championship points the last time out in the last GT series that was run under the Pacific Challenge banner. In fact, he was third in championship points overall then. This time, though, Brunnemer is currently scored in fourth. He was fourth in this session until John Wittendorf has just knocked him down to the fifth spot with 1 minute left to go. So that would put Wittendorf in fourth, Brunnemer back to fifth. Wittendorf also was running very well in the standings, but got caught up in an accident at Spa, did not race at Belle Isle. Back-to-back fourth place finishes to start off the season for Wittendorf. He's outside the top 10 in points as we got a hard crash here. Not sure if that was just one way to retire from the qualifying session, but that driver went hard into the wall in the tire barrier. And with 40 seconds left to go, I believe that's going to be it. Sounds like that was John Wittendorf. Just as we were talking about him, that fourth place time was all that he needed. And that will probably be the last time we see him for the session with 30 seconds to go.
Yeah, if I would have to assume he might have not had enough fuel to make an additional lap and just decided to retire the car in a somewhat dramatic manner. I mean, regardless, he's going to be in a really good position. And while he isn't top 10 in the points right now, he's also a driver who's missed around already, and he's had his fair share of misfortune in the opening few rounds of this season. So it's going to be, I feel, probably impossible for him to claim the championship just with how strong the top two have been. But there's definitely a lot on the line if he's able to make his way up through the points in the second half of the season. When we do finish the race here today, it will officially mark halfway in this Pacific Challenge season.
And these drivers have a lot to race for on this series, and they also have a lot of sponsors and supporters and partners who help make this happen on the league side. Benke Cinematography with Damian Benke, who's made a few starts this season, one of the big presenting sponsors for the Pacific Challenge GT3 Series as we are winding down the final few seconds of qualifying. And Damien's the man behind Benke Cinematography, and he looks to provide the most realistic photographs you could find on the sim. We also have liveries by Sarah Rabb, Sarah, in fact, is in this field and running tonight, currently 16th in the qualifying session. There's Sarah Rabb, wrapping up her final few laps in qualifying. And with graphic design experience for over 7 years and awards at the local, state, and national levels, absolutely committed to making sure that your next livery or logo is an absolute masterpiece. And Sarah, one of the many presenters and partners who are offering up prize packages for the series, we'll tell you more about that a little bit later, as well as Tam Livery. Their artist, and Christian Kanya has been a designer for the past 14 years, and he is a UI designer on his resume, and the past year decided to test his skills of creating a one-of-a-kind iRacing livery and suit designs. He has hundreds of satisfied customers, including some of iRacing's biggest name, and his success story continues to write itself. So check out his work. Again, that is Tam Livery, and that is some of the partners and sponsors that help make this series happen. Qualifying's officially in the books, and no surprise, Jesse Webb is on pole yet again. Let's take a look at the starting lineup for round 5 of the 2021 Pacific Challenge GT3 Series. Webb and Beats for top 2 in the points, top 2 in qualifying. They make up the front row. Nick Ledecky had a solid qualifying effort, got up into the top 3 late in the going, going to roll off in third. Outside, it's going to be John Wittendorf, who set that flyer in the top 5 late in the session in fourth spot. Chris Brunnemer and James Hansen take you through row number 3, respectively. They're going to line up in 5th and 6th. 7th spot, Mikkel Rudebusch in the 22, and Brady Lubenow in 8th in car number 11. And rounding out your top 10 for this race today, Jackson Lowry in car 12, and Spencer Vick in the 100 entry.
The first driver starting out of the top 10 today will be Alex Trebor, and he'll be joined by Trevor Anderson, who will line up 12th today. And then it's going to be Corey Peters, accompanied by Ryan Coulter in the 14th position. 15th and 16th, it'll be Alexander King and Sarah Rabb, one of the series presenting partners, of course. Then you have Christian Gurgias, Curtis Jones in the 17th and 18th position, and then rounding out the top 20, it's going to be Alan Roth, Miracle Roth, if you will, and BC Voigt, who entered the top 10 in points this round.
Justin Mikhaila takes you back to 21st spot, while Sven Hartman is starting in 22nd. 23rd is where you'll go back to find Mick Blue, who's going to line up on the inside of that row. Outside is going to be Jimmy Allen in car 17. 25th, David Flanagan in the 124, and Tyler Langenberg in the 191 is 26th. 27th spot is where you'll find John McClintock. Outside, Derek Carboni in the 127 and 28th. And rounding out your top 30 starters is going to be Gavin Kona in the 108 and Michael Della Sala in the 114.
36 cars started at Spa last week, and it'll be the same here at Imola. So 31st and 32nd are going to be George Tchek, and then Randall Ayers in the 32nd position. Patrick Herring, and then Scott Snyder will make up the 33rd and 34th positions respectively, and then rounding out your field will be Jason Frisk, and then Tyler Campbell does not set a time in the qualifying session, and he'll start from the rear. And I believe Race Control sent out the message that due to a change in manufacturer for Alan Roth tonight, he switches from the Audi to the BMW. He's starting from either the rear or the pit lane. I don't remember the particular penalty as a result of that.
Well, I'll tell you what, that's how the pros do it. We got that lineup in right before the car started to roll off, and we are getting set for the green flag. 5th race of 10 in the 2021 Pacific Challenge GT3 Series, and it is here on Pit Stop TV. Getting set to go. Top 2, the only 2 winners on the 2021 slate thus far. That's Jesse Webb, the pole sitter and point leader, with Chris Beets up alongside, and they have a hungry pack of cars behind looking to find victory for the first time this season. The green flag is up. Webb and Beets lead the field down to turn number 1, and we are underway at Imola, and 36 cars are going to pack their way down towards turn number 1 for the first time. They make it through the first kink in the corner as they approach turn 2, the best hard braking zone that is available, and it's Webb, the leader. He runs a little bit wide. Everybody survives through there for the first couple of corners. Contact, and we got a car around in front of the pack.
That's one of the Valhalla Sim Sports cars, and the leaders are side by side heading into the next complex, and they'll head into turn 7. That's Tosa, still side by side. It's going to be Jesse Webb, Chris Beets. These two have been the tail of the series so far this season. 2 by 2, it's as if they're still pacing, and it's going to be Chris Beets coming out ahead, but they're still going to be side by side heading up the hill into Pyretella.
You would never know this was a 60-minute race. Look at the top 4, double wide for 2 rows back. And the preferred line is going to jockey back and forth. This time it's Beets with the preferred entry there to the left-hander. Now it is Webb who's able to propel further out forward. And how about Brunimer to get up to 3rd and around Nick Ledecky? Webb's going to cement the lead here on the far side of the track. That's going to force Beets back to 2nd. Brunimer +2 in the opening few laps of this race, up to 3rd, while Ledecky and Wittendorf hold down the top 5. And we believe that the car that went around backwards earlier might have been that of Spencer Vick. I'll have to go back and verify that on the timing and scoring charts. But Webb has the lead by a car length. What an opening first half lap for these two, though. Now he's going to try to build that gap.
And I think it all started when Jesse Webb overshot turn 1 on cold tires just a little, or turn 2 rather, the first heavy braking zone. And that set up an opportunity for Beets to be side by side for a series of corners. And that was a really impressive job by Beets. And the important thing is he's still in the slipstream, and he's still going to be in a position where he's able to pressure Jesse Webb going into braking zones. And he's probably gaining a couple of tenths here going into turn 2.
And you can see him visibly starting to close up that gap. He has a look, and he's going to duck back in line as they come through turn 2 this time. Boy, Beets had a huge run in the draft tray. You called it, but he elected not to force the issue just now. I think if that happens later in the race, that may be the time where he's going to have to take that opportunity, even if it could result in disaster, because that's the only way he's going to be able to make up ground on the championship is to beat that 94 car, and the draft appears to be the equalizer that's allowing him to keep pace with Webb, the leader, as they come through turn 7 here for the second time in this race. Things starting to settle out. Looking back now for the rear bumper of Jesse Webb's car. Beets, who's trying to close back up on the draft. Brunimer, though, since getting up to 3rd, he looks to be a tick faster than Chris Beets for the time being. Granted, it's still early, but he is not starting to lose touch with the front runners for now, and he may try to follow Beets up through the front of the pack. Beets gets a great drive off the corner here, and he's closing.
Yet, in fact, the top 5 cars are within a second and a half of race leader Jesse Webb, and they're going to be side by side as we head into Alta here. One of the better, what we thought would be one of the better overtaking opportunities, and Beets got incredibly close. And while this isn't the best overtaking opportunity rather on the circuit, this is a place where you can either gain or lose a lot of time. This double left-hander complex then sets up for the long front straightaway, which yet again sets up for turn 2. And I have the feeling we're yet again going to see Chris Beets at least pressure and challenge Jesse Webb as he heads into this braking zone once more.
Going to watch the battle up for the lead for sure. How about this, though? Nearly 3 wide for 3rd spot. Brunimer under fire from Ledecky, who's got drafting help. They almost come together at the start-finish line, and that's John Wittendorf trying to find a way through. And how about Hansen? He's trying to draw even here. We're back on board with Beets as they come to turn 2. They're going to survive the corner there. No look for the lead for the time being, but Hansen had a huge run just behind to try to get up into the top 5. And there's trouble. That's Hansen crashing there as they come through turn 4.
And James Hansen was a driver who entered the championship picture third in points. And while he will have that drop week as available, this is probably going to be the round where he's going to have to take it. He's probably falling back into it, the 20s or the 30s. And that was absolutely massive contact. If I'd have to guess, probably suspension damage for him. Looked like it collected maybe a half a dozen others as well.
I believe Brady Lubenow was one of the cars involved. Hansen was in 6th. Notice that he had a huge run up the main straightaway. Looks as though may have tried to pull out and make a move. And you see, this is coming through turn 2. Oh, it started there with Ledecky. Ledecky got loose. The field stacked up behind him. And by the time the accordion kind of got back to where Lubenow was running in company, Hansen was already sideways, and Lubenow ended up piling in. Looks as though a lot of the field was able to get by, but that looks like that started all the way up with the driver who's currently in 3rd spot, with Ledecky coming through that portion of the racetrack, and it just stacked back up and ended up taking out one of the top 10 running cars.
Yeah, unfortunate to just see so many early runners get collected. I used the word early already, but yeah, we're early into the running. You definitely don't want to fall out of the picture like this in the first 10 minutes or so of a 60-minute race. But I think just goes to show that these drivers were probably the most aggressive we've seen early in the race so far this season. And I think we're just seeing that Imola is offering a great combination of overtaking opportunities and places to catch back up. And it's still a very difficult circuit, even if it allows a lot of chances to get back up there to a driver ahead of you.
On board with Hansen. There you see the contact there as he got in the back of Wittendorf. Ruderbusch then jacks up Hansen, sends him around, and then it's Lubenow with the big blow that gets Hansen up on his side. And I want to back up real quick. And I said Ledecky got loose. It looked like there might have been a little bit of paint rubbing there between himself and Brunnemer for that 3rd spot. And just very hard and intense racing up towards the front of the pack. And, you know, Trey, we talked about it in the lead-in. We talked about it when we looked at the point standings. These 2 cars that are now 5 seconds clear of the rest of the pack, thanks to all that was going on behind them, you know, you have to wonder if their level of success and them being at the front of the field is kind of ratcheting up the intensity for everybody else to know that if they want to beat these 2, they got to make those moves early and often, and that could be the reason why we saw some of the physicality, as it looks as though Webb didn't get a good run off the corner. He's going to lose the lead here to Beats this time.
And I believe this will be the first time, probably since Chris Beats won a race in round 2, that we will have someone who is leading the race in a period that's not, you know, a driver who is not Jesse Webb leading the race during a period that is not a pit cycle, if you can come around and claim the lead as we come here to the start-finish line. So definitely a big change of pace here at Imola. And like you said, I think a lot of people were Sharks, you know, getting a taste or a scent of that blood there, because for a lot of drivers, 5 minutes into the running, a lot of them probably felt they had the pace to contend for the win, and that was probably, for many, the first time they felt a genuine shot so far this season. And I think that's just a result of the combination of a GT3 car and this Imola circuit.
Yeah, and now the big question is, if these 2 start trading the lead multiple times, is that going to allow Nick Ledecky, John Wittendorf, and, you know, how about Alex Trevor, who is now kind of working his way up to a battle for position in the 5th spot? Trevor started back in 11th. Right now just lost that spot to Chris Brunnemer. You see those 2 cars battling for position further back. We got a 2-car breakaway at the head of the pack, 2-car battle here for 3rd spot between Ledecky and Wittendorf, and then Brunnemer and company continues to lead a very tight freight train of cars, with Trevor now, the newcomer, who has caught up to Brunnemer, who looked like he may have overshot the left-handed corner there, washed up off the bottom of the curbing. But Trevor has been impressive today. So far, one of the biggest movers, got through the big contact and carnage that took place off of turn number 4, and he has now set his sights on Brunnemer for a potential top 5 opportunity. Trevor, who has been very impressive here tonight, a driver who came into the weekend 25th in championship standings, best finish so far, a 7th. He's run 3 of the 4 races, and right now on par for perhaps what could be his best result, but we still got a long way to go. Not even 10 minutes into this race yet, and we've had so much going on, and the top 2 remain very close in the battle for the race lead.
Yeah, it's still an incredibly compelling battle up front. And I do like what you said about Trevor, and he's doing very well despite a little bit of aerodynamic damage, which is probably really hampering him both in corners and on straightaways, whether it be a loss of downforce or an increase in drag. And it looks like in the meantime, we have seen Chris Spieth actually pull out a little bit of a gap to the point where he's not feeling immediate pressure in some of these heavy braking zones. It's about a half of a second gap back to Jesse Webb at the moment. So this is the first time in 10 or 9 or 10 minutes here that I think these leaders have really gotten a chance to breathe and just get an opportunity to go out there and hit their marks and hit some hot laps, which is, something we saw a lot at Spa between the lead two. They got relatively separated after the first 20 or 30 minute period.
And we also saw there that Nick Ledecky, granted, we're early in this one, but set the fastest lap of the race thus far. We saw that graphic flash up on the top of your screen, and there's Ledecky. I have to say, though, when you look at how his year has unfolded, we know that Nick Ledecky is exceptionally quick. He's proven it by 2 third-place finishes in the 3 races he's contested, but you have to wonder if there are still certain flashbacks back to Road America when he went off in the kink while leading, approaching the halfway point in that race. He knows that he is in the same company as far as experience and pace. 2 drivers ahead of him. Got checked up a little bit after bouncing around with Brunnemer in that battle for third, but he's really starting to close up on this gap. I mean, at one point it was 5 seconds even. Looks like he's gained a little bit of time now on the front runners trying to close up here. And it may take pit strategy as you watch him attack the curbs there to the Variante Alta on the far side of the course, doing all that he can to close up on these front runners and maybe make it a 3-car race, especially if the top 2 continue to play nice and try to mine that gap, which continues to be about 5 seconds or so back to this driver in third who we're on board with.
The important thing for Ledecky, as you said, if he can go out here and get the job done here at Imola, it's definitely going to be a way to get a lot of confidence back, because he's a driver, as you said, he's shown that he has a really strong pace, just has to get out there and execute from week to week, and he can definitely come back, say, next season and be someone to challenge Chris Spieth and Jesse Webb for the championship, because it's probably just going to take a lot to get back up there. The important thing in the current scenario for him is the fact that he's pulled about 8 or 9 tenths over 4th place John Wittendorf. So Wittendorf really isn't going to be able to get a lot of his slipstream. So as long as Ledecky just hits his marks, he should be able to pull away if he has the pace. And as you said, if those lead 2 start to battle, that could open the door for him. Go back to midfield. On board with Sarah Rabb, and we're looking back at the likes of Ryan Coulter. I don't think we've talked about him much too far this season. Excellent to see him running in the back end of the top 10 right now. I believe he's being challenged by Mikkel Ruderbusch right now, who sits in the 11th in that Lamborghini.
Yeah, Ruderbusch, one of the drivers who actually lost some spots as he had to look there to the inside. You see that white car that was kind of peaking low that time on Coulter to get back up into the top 10. Ruderbusch started 7th, but was involved in that skirmish. As a matter of fact, when we saw the big crash involving Hansen, it was the front end of Ruderbusch's car that sent Hansen's car sideways. Not Ruderbusch's fault by any means, as things kind of accordion back to him, but that definitely slowed his progress, and not sure how much damage there may be to that car that could be hindering its performance, especially when trying to rely on the slipstream a little bit to close up and get back up and around Coulter. We also tipped our cap to Alex Trevor for picking up a handful of spots. He's +5. Let's do the same for Sarah Rabb, as she's gained a bunch of ground, started 16th up to 9th, looking for more. And Sarah's season does not really tell the whole story about this driver who supports the Pacific Challenge GT3 Series through and through. There are prize packages aplenty up for grabs for all these competitors. Some may wonder why, if you're out of the championship hunt, why focus, why press, why spend so much time practicing and preparing for these races as Ledecky goes faster yet? And the reason being is there's a lot up for grabs. In the pro class, they're going to get $85 cash and 3 liveries from Sarah Rabb. Going to provide that to your season champion for the pros. The $65 and $40 for second and third are going to come from the series organizers. For the amateurs, they're also going to get a $30 gift card and 3 liveries from Sarah Rabb as well. $20 gift card for the PSRC web store, $10 gift card for the PSRC web store. That goes to second and third in amateurs. And then they also have prizes available from the finishers from 4th to 21st. 10 will be eligible for a raffle that will be giving away $9. And then even back 22nd to 44th in the championship standings. Going to be eligible for a raffle. 10 drivers in that bracket for $6 in a cash payout. And their season prizes. They have a most improved, most positions gained, cleanest driver, and that's all going to be contingency awards from TAM Livery. So these sponsors stepping up in a big way, and Sarah Rabb, who's been caught up in a lot of bad luck, up in the top 10 once again. Hopefully today the results are able to match the performance she's able to put out, as we got a battle for 5th starting to heat up. Here is Trevor and Brunnemer side by side for the 5th spot, with Anderson starting to close in as well in 7th.
Yeah, Bronheimer was a driver who had, as Corey Rexford was reporting, I appreciate this, Corey. He had a couple of offs on lap 4, including one that I saw on the replay was on a replay of mine was going into turn 2, which is one of the high-speed components of the circuit. He got a little bit of the curbing on the inside. I think you might have mentioned that actually, Eric, and then he went off into the gravel, lost about 3 or 4 spots as a result. So he's definitely someone who's making his way back up to the field. It's probably going to be hard for him to win at this point, but he could probably go up to 3rd and 4th. We go on the pit lane, see quite a handful of drivers down there, including Tyler Langenberg, who is missing that front end.
Langenberg, a driver who looks as though he has found the edge of disaster here at Imola in this race at about just over the 45 minutes to go mark. And let's go back here and see what happened to Langenberg. Car looks clean for now, kind of running by himself, catches a little bit of curbing here on the left-hand side of the course. Starting to close up here. Oh, wow. So something happened in front of Langenberg. He slowed down as the field stacked up and came to a stop and just got launched up skyward. And Langenberg, who started back in 26, started working his way up through the pack. Now in the pit lane with a car, which I'm not sure they may be able to get that repaired and back out. So far, he's still in the session, but that was bizarre.
I'm utterly speechless after that accident. We'll get another perspective here of that, but he's definitely going to be, a little bit disappointed after all the practice you put in. But I think upon reflection, that is going to be a bit humorous, just considering the amount of airtime he was able to garner. Almost caught a piece of that spectator crossover bridge. Fortunately, we're here on the virtual side, so no potential issues there. But yeah, all around just a bizarre incident. It looked like it took out several drivers pretty early into the run.
This is the Randall Ayers got off course. We're starting to come back on. Oh, Scott Snyder is the car that got spun off, and he goes into the barrier hard. And then as Snyder was rejoining, I think here comes Randall Ayers. It's right out of the view of our screen. There it is. Oh, and Snyder, he was trying to avoid another competitor. Ayers was the car that punted the backside of Langenberg and sent him flying. So now we've put all the pieces together and kind of tied up who the 4 cars that were involved was. But I'm with you, Trey. I think that's going to go on the blooper reel at the end of 2021 here for these guys. And not the way in which he wanted to get his race in. But for Langenberg, it was a heck of a ride for sure.
Yeah, we'll get another perspective here, this time on board, so this should offer a pretty fun experience here. You see the initial accident happening up ahead. All around, he's doing the right thing, and he was able to maintain the racing line, and eventually things closed up on him, and then the driver ahead either was, just not wary of what was initially happening ahead, didn't know that there were cars coming up into the racing line. It'll happen sometimes. Racing incidents will happen. It's the nature of this, and I think that's the important thing about the sim side of things, is that you can learn from those mistakes without it being an expensive day.
So for Langenberg, that's not the result that he would have wanted right now as they run. Tyler Campbell did not take the green flag. Patrick Herring is 7 laps down. Corey Peters also had some problems early in this race, as did James Hansen, who was involved in the crash that we documented. Michael Della Sala had some problems as well. Langenberg, 1 lap down, 31st position, with still 2/3 of this race left to go. And we got another car that has gone around backwards here. That's Gavin Cohn, who's gone for a spin. Now, Cohn was running in 15th at the time of the off. More cars trying to get their way past. We'll see where he funnels down in the running order. It looks as though there's a big enough gap there that he may be able to stay in the top 20. But for Cohn, this will be an incident that will set him back for sure. And now he'll have to be forced to try to rebound and gain up some more spots as he was running a little bit closer up towards that top 10.
Fortunately, still 42 minutes left to play and a pit stop to utilize a little bit of strategy in your favor. We'll ride on board with Cohn here. The driver that he's attacking right now, it is Jimmy Allen, currently running in the 17th position on the racetrack. And it's going to be a pretty long run. This is probably half a mile, 3/4 of a mile until you get down to Variante Tamburello. You'll see he doesn't quite have the slipstream here. He'll peek out to get a little bit of clean air, get a little bit of clean sight, come back out, get a wide apex, and then you'll be into turn 2.
As it came through 2, you saw just how much under braking that Cohn was able to close up. And here's a fight that just will not go away. Alex Trebor in that zebra-striped entry now chasing down Chris Brunheimer, who at one point was within a stone's throw of the top 2. That was before all the contact took place where Ledecky got squared up and Hansen got wiped out. But since kind of stabilizing in the 5th spot, Brunheimer has not been able to break free from that Mercedes of Trevor, who's trying to get his first top 5 of the season. These two pretty much as close as any other battle that we have going on the racetrack, and they've swapped this spot a couple of times. At one point, Trevor Anderson was up there to make it a 3-car race. He's since fallen back a ways a little bit, but still impressed with Trevor and all that he's been able to do so far here today, and now possibly just biding his time and awaiting the opportunity to get back up to and around Chris Brunnemer if the opportunity presents itself. They've got to run 4 seconds further up the field to catch John Wittendorf, and at one point, the third-place drivers, you take a look at Wittendorf, who's kind of in a league of his own right now. 4 seconds clear of that fight for 5th, and about, we'll call it 4 seconds behind the third-place runner and final podium spot of Nick Ledecky as he comes up to turn 2. Here's Ledecky. He was setting flyers lap after lap, and it looked as though he started to close in on the leaders. You can still see them a little bit there. Out the windshield there could Ledecky, but at one point he got that lead down to about 4.3 seconds, and right away Beats and Webb opened up the 0.8 of a second gap yet again, and Ledecky's going to have to find something even further if he wants a shot at a victory, but he can still see the leaders, Trey, so they got that carrot hanging out in front of him, and that dog is going to chase on after it here. And we'll see if he can close up that margin with 40 minutes to go.
Yeah, that's the important thing for Ledecky. And like you said, I think as long as he has sight of the leaders at a racetrack like this, the opportunity will be there to present itself. And for all we know with how tight these top two have been, they could very easily collide at some portion of the racetrack. It's not entirely uncommon for that to happen. Of course, these are really refined drivers with excellent skills. So it might be a rare occurrence, but you can definitely not count it out. And if that were to occur, Ledecky would be the driver to take advantage of that and pick up the lead as a result. But last lap, he actually picked up 0.3 on both Jesse Webb and Chris Beats. They ran 1:43.6 last time. Oh, excuse me, I didn't read the clock correctly. He actually loses about 0.7 of a second last time by. I thought his time was 3 seconds to the good. My bad there. Right on board on Jesse Webb, though, as we go across the front straightaway, and we'll be heading to the very Aunt Timberella in just a bit.
And I bet the one thing that Ledecky wants to happen may happen here. I think he wants these two to start battling for it up front. And right now, Jesse Webb appears to be a tick quicker than that of Chris Beats, but he doesn't look to try to pull out here as they come through turns 2, 3, and now 4. They'll be setting up to head down towards Villeneuve with the first time we see lap traffic up ahead of the front runners. And there's Ledecky now exiting that portion of the racetrack. But the leaders are going to have some lap traffic they're going to have to negotiate here at some point. And we'll see how much lap traffic could be a factor as the field is kind of spread out for the most part. I believe that might be Jason Frisk who is up in front of the leaders. In fact, it is. So we'll see how things pan out once the top runners get to Frisk's car, who is running in 30th position in the Audi after he apparently has had some contact and what looks like a little bit of obvious damage there to the right rear. So Frisk has some time, though, before he has to worry about the leaders closing up on him, but it will be something for them to consider. And where you catch lap traffic could be ultra important as to how this race pans out. And also just keeping eyes on Ledecky and that gap. He's starting to close back in again. He's almost got that margin down to 4 seconds here, as this may very well turn into a 3-car battle with Ledecky continuing to attack the curbs at the Variete Alta on the far side of the course.
Yeah, just to hit on a couple of things, like you said about managing lap traffic here, it's going to be a little bit tough because, as you said, there's portions of the racetrack where, as a lap car, if you want to get out of the way of the leaders, there's not a lot of leeway, whether it be runoff area or just the fact that this racetrack isn't incredibly wide. It can be a bit difficult in certain components of the racetrack to actually let the leaders by if you're willing. And yeah, Ledecky has been able to close up that gap. I believe in the last 2 laps, it's been about a total of 1 second. So based off of the current pace and current trends, he will be there in about 8 laps time. But of course, there's probably going to be a lot of swinging in terms of pace over the course of the next little bit here in this race. So it's just a matter for Ledecky, for him to continue to be consistent. Oh, we're going backtracking a little bit into the midfield, and we see quite the battle here.
Brian Coulter, who was in a top 10 spot not that long ago, now back to 13th position, battling with David Flanagan and company, trying to get up into the top 10. As they approach turn number 2, Coulter's going to slot back here 1 spot shy of Flanagan, also in that mix and all that racing and battling for position. That's a pretty tight group of cars that consists of Justin Mikhaila. Mikhail Rudebush was in that group as well at one point. He broke clear, though, and holds that 10th spot. But Michaela, Coulter, Flanagan, BC Voigt, and Sven Hartman all in a race for position just outside the top 10. It's pretty much 11th on back as we watch these competitors continue to jockey around 4 spots before we approach the all-important pit stops. So we're about 6 minutes shy of the halfway mark in this, the 5th race of the 2021 Pacific Challenge GT3 Series. And the top 2 in the race are the top 2 in the championship standings, although they've reciprocated their running order as far as how they're positioned in points. And they are the only 2 drivers with a victory at this point in the season. They got ahead of the rest of the pack by virtue of some help due to some hard racing for third gone bad. But nevertheless, this race is far from over, and there's still some tight competition taking place all throughout the pack as Chris Beets and Jesse Webb have apparently settled down their battle for the race lead for the time being. Ledecky trying to close, and that all-important pit stop is starting to enter into the time window as far as an opportunity to come on in for your stop for fuel. And we can see how the rest of this race unfolds and when the right time may be to duck on the pit road and have that taken care of for you to start to focus on the finish of this race.
Yeah, and with the quelling of that battle between the lead 2, I wonder if there might be an additional benefit for Jesse Webb. He might be able to save a little bit of fuel just by utilizing the slipstream and conserving his pace a little bit potentially, and that might save him an additional lap out on the racetrack, and that might mean that he doesn't have to fuel up the car quite as much. And that might open the opportunity for it would be an overcut opportunity because he would be staying out a little bit longer than competitor Chris Beets. So that's something that may be a possibility here.
Meanwhile, we'll move a little bit further up here in the running order is Mikkel Rudebusch, who's had an up and down day thus far. Started 7th, now running in 10th. He was up there battling for position from 3rd on back when he got tangled up with Hansen. Now trying to get up and around Sarah Rab. Oh, Rudebusch loses the back end of the car by himself. He'll keep it off the barrier, but he spins out while running in the top 10. And it looks as though he's going to fall from that 10th spot and have to patiently wait to rejoin the field.
Fortunate for him, it was a little bit of a sketchy rejoin, but all around no issues. But fortunately for him, he does go off on a portion of the racetrack where there is a little bit of a runoff, and it looks like the rear end kicks out, so maybe he has to play around a little bit with the brake bias and get a little bit more in the front brake, so that's not an issue going forward for Rudebusch. He will drop about 6 positions on the racetrack as a result of that, challenging for Sarah Grab for the 9th position at the time. So he definitely has a lot of time to be able to make up those positions, but he's going to be going up against some really competitive drivers. Some of the drivers that overtook him include Sven Hartman, BC Voigt, 10th place in points, Ryan Coulter, and others.
And boy, for Rudebusch, this has not been the type of year that he would have hoped for to kick off his 2021 sim racing campaign. Last year, actually considered the cleanest driver in the series with a 7th place finish in championship standings. And this year, it's pretty much just been all bad luck. Granted, that was driver error for sure, as he may have had a little bit too much rear brake in the car or just got loose on entry by getting on the brakes too hard. But if you go back to Donington Park, had a spectacular crash there that buried him in the running order. Road America 35th after another accident, finally got a top 5 at Belle Isle. And then at Spa, also a race that was not event-free for Rudebusch, 14th. And now he finds himself out of the top 10 here after a spin just shy of the halfway point. Rudebusch trying to get back up to the top 10 in championship standings, but that spin is not going to help the efforts for now. Fortunately, he's still got a good bit of racing left to go. We're on board with Alex Trebor as he continues to try to crack the top 5 for the first time this season. And I'll tell you, Trey, I'm very impressed by how aggressive these drivers could be as they come through both sets of chicanes that make up this 3.05 layout. The Variante Alta, which they just went through, and the Variante Bassa, which kind of serves as the last set of corners before they come up to the start-finish line. They're actually going to come through that sector of the racetrack momentarily. And I'll tell you, it's impressive to see, just how aggressive you could be through the Variante Alta. And if you do attack that curving, it doesn't seem to upset the race car all that much, or am I misreading it by the precision that these drivers are displaying so far?
I think it's a little bit tough to say. I think the one thing that we can say, though, is that just, visibly being able to see that these drivers are consistently aggressive on the curvings, I think it shows that they've definitely put in the practice time here at this racetrack. I think the other thing that we're seeing with these drivers being incredibly aggressive on curving, particularly on the exit of the corners, we're seeing an entirely different approach to attacking the racetrack as opposed to what we saw at Spa last week. So the incident point system could be very damaging at Spa last week because you could get off-track incident points for going into the AstroTurf. But here at Imola, I don't think we're seeing penalties for going into the AstroTurf. And that's really allowing drivers to be a lot more aggressive off the exit of the corner. It probably means they can get back onto the power a bit earlier because they can utilize a lot more of that runoff area on the racetrack.
We want to point out here, I'll tell you what, Trey, take a look at the timing and scoring. Corey Rexford just hit us up and let us know, hey, look, speaking of the curbing, wow, Ledecky got a lot of it there, and Ledecky is coming. That gap was over 5 seconds at one point. And look at this. He's starting to close up here. Under 3 seconds now is Ledecky from the race leaders. And Jesse Webb has fallen back from about the 3 to 5 tenths of a second that he was running behind that of Chris Beets. He's now back to about 3/4 of a second as we start to see some pit stops take place. But how about these drivers up at the head of the pack? It's starting to tighten up. I think Webb may just be relaxing a little bit, awaiting this pit stop before he starts to press Beets for the lead again. But Ledecky has been the car on the move. I mean, shaving down 2 seconds the last 4 laps or so. We may very well get a 3-car battle for the lead and win, but it's all going to be contingent on if, when, and how the pit stops come to form.
The incredible thing about this drive, too, for Ledecky is that he's showing that he has absolute raw pace because the top two just haven't been battling quite as competitively as they were earlier in the running. You basically said it, Eric, just the fact that these two, their battle has quelled a little bit since then. And I think it's allowed them to get into a bit of a rhythm. But Ledecky has just been someone to show the fact that he definitely has a lot of pace of the race car. And we're definitely seeing the makings of what's going to be a 3-way white fight going down to the wire. And while it's going to take a little bit for him to get up there yet, he's already in a position where he might be able to pull off a brilliant strategy call.
It may start to, Ledecky may actually start to be able to close up and sniff a little bit of a toe here if he can get just a little bit closer. Now under 3 seconds is the gap back to third. And I'm curious, if you are a driver like Jesse Webb, like Nick Ledecky, are you planning on following the competition to the pit lane like Beach, just so that way you can assure the competition does not get out of your sight? Or do you think maybe the best option, Trey, is to go off strategy as to what your competition's doing?
At a racetrack like this, where the slipstream is so beneficial, it's. I almost feel if you're in the second position of second place, Jesse Webb, you almost have to go out there and hit a lap unlike any you've hit before to compensate for the fact that you're not having the slipstream that he's currently getting from Christopher Beets. But on the other hand, if you're able to go out there and hit a lap with really good pace, you might be able to pull off an overcut opportunity, and it might make overtaking Chris Beets a lot less risky than it would if you decide to come in and pit in with him. So, you know, it's unfortunate that we can't give a definite answer, but it all depends on how you want to approach it as a driver. There's definitely pros and cons either way.
Lap traffic up ahead. That's Randall Ayers, who is ahead of your race leader in Chris Beets, with Webb closing down now to about 2 car lengths. And well, a heads-up move there by Ayers. Just going to move over driver's left to let the top 2 get through cleanly. But still, Ledecky's able to gain about 0.3 of a second on that side of the racetrack. We'll see how he can navigate the lap traffic as well, with Webb and Beets still separated by a couple of car lengths. And Spencer Vick will be the next lap car that they have to encounter, but he's still a little bit further up the road. On board with Ledecky, you see Ayers, the white machine that is kind of splitting the top 2. Ledecky pressing and pressing and pressing. And he has yet to find that limit between this incredible and frantic pace he is setting and the potential of disaster. Ayers gives way there to Ledecky that time as they came through the Variante Alta. So it's 27.5 minutes to go. Pit stops must be on the horizon, and the battle for the lead is taking shape as it has been. As a matter of fact, these two have not been separated by more than a second all night long, and Ledecky is trying to close up on him, and they will forego the pit lane for at least one more lap.
Yeah, as we continue to discuss pitting here, just to talk a little bit further, we haven't been seeing a lot of variation in strategy. And I say, for example, at Spa, and I just think that's because that's a racetrack that's so big. That's a track, I believe, that's about 5 or 6 miles. So it's going to be a little bit difficult to be able to stretch additional laps out of your fuel tank. We're here at Imola. We only have a 3-mile circuit, so it does open the opportunity, if you are Jesse Webb or Chris Beets, to pull off the strategy move to try to get a slightly off sequence for Chris Beats. We did see Ledecky go slightly off coming out of the Tamburello portion of the circuit, so he's probably going to lose a couple tenths as a result, but he still stands at 2.5 seconds, so a brilliant job of a recovery of what could have been pure disaster. Riding on board with leader Chris Beats.
And just to give our viewers a full canvas as to how impressive Ledecky's charge forward has been, I mean, looking back to John Wittendorf, he's gapped Wittendorf. At one point, they were nose to tail for third on back. He's gapped Wittendorf by almost 10 seconds in his own right. He's left the rest of the field behind him to chase down these two who have been the class of the field in 2021. And you know, I just have to wonder if he wants to try to make sure he can get there before they get to the pit stops, or if he just wants this charge to continue and sustain through that stop for fuel. As right now, Webb may be biding his time with Beats and allowing it to set the pace, allow him to hit the fuel number. But right now, Beats has been the pace setter for the majority of this race with just about 25 minutes to go. Wittendorf fourth. Grunemer has won the battle for fifth for the time being over Alex Trevor, while Trevor Anderson sits in seventh. Jackson Lowry currently in eighth. Sarah Rabb still holding down ninth with a great performance. And Justin Mikhaila, after being able to get around the spinning car, Mikhail Rudebush, continues to hold down the final spot in the top 10 for the time being. You see Mikhaila there in that 10th spot. Fortunately, no pressure from behind for the time being. Sven Hartman would be the next car that could come on up to challenge Mikhaila for that 10th spot, but still a lot of racing left to go. Here's Rudebush, who had that spin earlier, currently running at 15, trying to get around BC Voigt for the 14th spot.
I believe since his spin a few minutes ago, it's a recovery of a total of 1 position so far, and he definitely did his job through the last portion of the circuit. He's going to have a pretty strong slipstream here as we head into the Tamburello, which is turns 2, 3, and 4 here on the circuit. In fact, he's going to be side by side before we even get to the braking zone. He might even have the job done before he gets to the braking zone, so he can't come he can't come back across before getting to the braking zone, but he does get the jobs done through the first couple of corners. And then as we head into the Villeneuve complex, he's going to be dead and gone by about half a second. Do see Scott Snyder, he's 2 laps down and he is off after a spin, actually coming out of the Villeneuve section of the circuit where these drivers are.
Snyder's going to rejoin the pack here, albeit running a bit gingerly after he was involved in an incident earlier tonight. This would be another one for Snyder, who is a name that normally is able to keep his nose clean throughout most of these events. And just tonight, though, this track, which is very tough and very difficult on the sim, regardless of whatever car that you may be running on. But for Snyder, he's able to get back and rejoin the pack here. We'll see how it all pans out. And how about this driver, Curtis Jones? Typically a name that we see running up well towards the top 10 in the championship running, or I should say top 10 in these races. 5th in championship points. As a matter of fact, it looked as though he was in store for a very strong finish at Spa 1 week ago. It was a big run here by Gergis, as he's going to move aside and get by Jones and kick Jones out of the top 20 potentially, or back to 20th it would be. But Jones was on, oh no! And around goes Gergis right after taking that spot away, and Jones is going to get it back for 19th.
The fortunate thing for Gergis is that he's not going to lose any additional positions. It's only going to be track position on the circuit. And it seemed like he had pretty good pace, just got into the Aqua Minarelli complex just a little bit too hot. It looked like similar to what we saw on Mikhail Ruderbush. The rear end kicked out. Perhaps he didn't have enough brake. I believe it would be front brake bias in the car, and that's why the rear end would come out. And it's only going to be a loss of about 2 or 3 seconds for him, so not the biggest loss in the world.
So just as we were talking about him, I think we gave him the kiss of death there as he ended up going around there, did Gergis. So, again, only the loss of the 1 spot, as you mentioned. Here's Trevor Anderson, who has climbed from 12th to 7th on the grid for the time being, with Jackson Lowry starting to close up after he picked up 1 spot from 9th on the grid. Lowry's going to be looking for that 7th position, and it appears to be a tick faster than Anderson, at least for the time being. Now, at the head of the pack, with about 22 minutes to go, Beats and Webb continue to be separated by about 0.6 of a second, but Ledecky's charge forward has just about stalled out. He got it down to about 2.7 seconds at one point, and it appears to have now stabilized at, looks as though it's about 3.2 seconds here, as the leaders make their way around Spencer Vick on the main straightaway, one of the best spots you can catch lap traffic, and Beats is going to open up the advantage and remain on the racetrack for the time being. Let's take this opportunity while we wait for the pit stops to thank some of our partners who make these races possible here on the platform with Pit Stop TV. With about 21 and a half minutes to go in this race for the Pacific Challenge GT3 Series. And the first one we want to give a shout out to is our friends at Tucson Sound Art. Now, the reminder is that is your picture and your music. With Valentine's Day less than 2 weeks away, this is the best gift idea you could imagine. Take any picture that you want of your friend, your loved one, your prized possessions. Send it on over to Tucson Sound Art. They will take that picture, put it on a beautiful and custom framed canvas, and it is your picture and your music. You have the best of both worlds. And here's the kicker. Use the promo code PITSTOPTV at checkout to save 10% off your purchase. The website, TucsonSoundArt.com. Promo code PITSTOPTV at checkout for 10% off. And that is one of the partners who has stepped up in a big way with Pit Stop TV in 2021. And we have more, but it looks as though we are on the cusp of pit stops. So we are going to keep our eyes here on some of the front runners to see who elects to come down the pit lane here, as this could end up being the move of the race and for the win. Also, John Wittendorf has fallen back into the clutches of Chris Brunnemer in the race for fourth. Brunnemer is the car that is closed up on Wittendorf here. He's separated by about 2 car lengths as they come down the hill here with pit stops looming. Brunnemer may not be done climbing up the pylon just yet.
Without a little bit of attrition, it's probably going to be harder for him to go farther than the 4th position, but it's been a brilliant recovery drive. He might have only fallen back to the 6th or 7th position, but really the farther up the running order you go, it really becomes a lot more difficult to be able to make up those positions. So far, it's been a really good recovery drive for Brunnemer. He's been clean since lap 4, been doing a very impressive job, very consistent, and I think he would be fully rewarded if he can come back and claim a 4th position. And then if something opens, if there's a mistake out of the top 3 or an accident, he could be the driver to step onto the bottom step of the podium tonight. And yeah, you definitely said about the pit cycle, Eric. We did see that Alex Trevor came down onto the pit lane, and I think when he pitted in, he was running in the back end of the top 10, or it might have been the mid-teens. Or was he a driver that was running in the back end of the top 5, actually, at one point?
Yeah, Trevor, a guy who, as Emerson Arden just whispered in our ear, he was actually running in the 6th spot at the time of the pit stop. So that's the highest running driver who has hit the pit lane just yet. And as you can see by the timing and scoring ticker, you can see that the top 2 remain nose to tail for the most part. Ledecky has fallen back nearly 4 seconds off this battle for the race lead as we enter the final 19 minutes of this event, with Wittendorf and Brunnemer nose to tail for 4th and 5th. But the timing and scoring charts are going to start to ebb and flow a little bit here as some drivers elect to come down the pit lane for service, and we are patiently awaiting these 2. This is exactly what Chris Beets needs to do if he wants an opportunity to grab a championship in this series, and these 2 are going to make us sweat it out at least one more lap. He has got to remain ahead of Jesse Webb, and judging by Jesse Webb's racecraft and how dominant he has been on this season, even though Beets did go ahead and capture top honors in the opening round that we had, or I should say round number 2 at Road America, I would not be surprised if Webb is just using this opportunity to follow in the tire tracks, kind of stalk Beets a little bit, maybe force him into a mistake, and also to be able to keep some of the pace at bay in order to hit his fuel number that he is requiring in order to come down pit road when he would like to, or when he had been planning on throughout the duration of this race. So maybe we're not seeing all the cards that Jesse Webb has to display, but nevertheless, that battle for the front spot remains tight, with Ledecky pressing each and every corner to try to catch those 2.
Yeah, that's definitely a strategy worth buying into. You listed out a lot of the positive benefits of trailing someone if you have similar pace. And yeah, I think the really big thing is if he does come out of the pit road still behind him, I think he'll have a really good idea of knowing where Chris Beets' car is weak on the racetrack, and that'll give an idea of the best places on the racetrack to try to make a pass happen as we continue to watch this battle on the racetrack. And it's gotten incredibly tight between the top 2. It's only a car length or 2 here, and they might be side by side as we head down the hill.
Boy, I thought we were going to see Beets run a little bit wide there on the exit of the left-hander. Another lap car up ahead. Webb, though, is clearly starting to turn up the pressure. Maybe these 2 were on a bit of an in-lap here. That could be why we're seeing the aggressive tendencies start to intensify. We'll know in a moment, especially with this lap car. This will be a good opportunity to hit the pit lane. We'll see what they do. The lap car comes down pit road, and it looks as though Beets may have aborted. I thought he was going to try to duck down pit road. Maybe decided he didn't want to follow the lapper into the pit lane. I don't know about you, Trey, but it looked like he started to fade right and decided to abort the mission as a couple of cars do come in, including your third-place runner, Ledecky.
This is really going to shake things up. So in theory, I think Ledecky will have to take a little bit of additional fuel, but he's going to be able to come out onto hopefully a clean portion of the racetrack, and it will be up to him to hit that optimal outlap, and that'll be a great way to make up a lot of time. He was sitting 3 or 4 seconds back of the race leader, so it would take a lot for him to claim the lead in the pit cycle. We're going to head into Tosa nearly side by side. Webb really, really applying the pressure at this portion of the race.
And Webb looking to the outside on the sharp left-hander at Tosa in turn 7 through the kink here at turn number 8. Now setting up for the Paratello. That is the hard-braking left-hander at turn 9. Look at Webb all over the back bumper of Beats for the lead. Could we anticipate these two cars coming down the pit lane together this time?
It's incredibly tough to say. With how precisional these drivers are, I feel like their fuel numbers are probably quite similar here at Imola. So it might be really dangerous if these two drivers, with how close they are, decide to pit in on the same lap. Especially if you're Jesse Webb, it might be a little bit tough to judge when Beats is going to get on the brake and get on this pit limiter. So all around, we are shaping up for one of the most critical components of the race. I think we've been looking forward to this pit stop for a while for good reason. And I think it's about to be an absolutely exciting tale, or I'm trying to figure out what I'm trying to say here is chapter, if you will, of this story of the race. Here they come.
Both of them coming down the pit lane together. Interesting to see if this, in fact, was the plan all along. They're on the pit lane with less than 15 minutes to go. Chris Beats and Jesse Webb, did they get the fuel number right? Whoever spends the least amount of time on pit road definitely going to roll out of here with the race lead. If they spend a similar amount of time on the pit lane, they'll end up pulling out of the pits with Beats still ahead of Jesse Webb. By virtue of the pole, though, Webb is able to pit one stall further forward than Beats, and we'll see when these cars are ready to flinch. I believe Wittendorf may have followed him down. Lowry may have followed him down as well, and we're also going to keep tabs on Nick Ledecky. Beats got the jump there. He's going to be able to pull out in front of Webb. This is going to be nose to tail as they're going to come off the pit lane here with tires that have been cooled off momentarily by coming onto the pit road. And this is going to be your battle for the lead and the win. And we'll keep our eyes on Ledecky on when and where he blends into the picture as the leaders head back to 2 off of pit road.
So we enter the final quarter of the race as we conclude that pit stop, and really, that pit stop didn't end up changing much of anything, but it definitely created a little bit of a spin and a little bit of a twist here in this race. And now these drivers are going to get 14, 15 minutes here to just go all out, so it's going to be a lot of fun here.
And surprised to see how far back Nick Ledecky is from third. 9 seconds back is that of Ledecky. He is all the way back from the front runners here as a number of drivers who are running up in the top 10 come off the pit lane, some of which have already made their stops. They're back. They got the tires back up to temperature. They're going to battle for some positions here, and we'll come back to this race for the lead. And we are going to watch this battle probably throughout the duration of this program because it is going to be tight. With Webb now beginning to apply serious pressure. We'll take one quick opportunity to thank one of the newest partners on the Pit Stop TV platform in Race Pace. Now, have you ever wished that you could have a race engineer on speed dial? Well, now you can, thanks to Race Pace, a driver development service and setup shop that is an all-in-one deal. If you work with Tyler at Race Pace, a real-world race engineer, he will help you step up your game before your next race. Pick up the pace with Race Pace, the newest partner of Pit Stop TV. Here's the battle for the lead, separated by a car length, as they're going to get set to come back up onto the main straightaway. And here is Jesse Webb in the slipstream of Chris Beats. We've seen how important the draft has been here leading up towards turn number 2. And we'll see if Webb is going to start to force the issue to get up and around Beats here with time starting to run out.
It looks like the exit out of Ravaza isn't quite enough for Jesse Webb. He enters Timborello about 4/10 of a second rather, back of Chris Beats. So it might be another lap until we yet again get that opportunity to see if he has the pace. But again, these guys are continuing to really challenge themselves. You can tell every corner that they're the way these drivers, just the attitude of their cars rather, that they're really forcing each other into adjusting their lines as opposed to what their conventional optimal racing line would be.
It appears as though that Jesse Webb may be pretty good on the mid-sector of this course. He's able to pull up to about a car length, 2 car lengths back on Beats as they come through this set of corners here. And Beats, though, has been really able to pull them off of Ravaza down the main straightaway and open up the lead big enough that Webb has not been able to get a good enough of a tow. Boy, he almost came right into your living room that time as they came through the corner. Webb is applying serious pressure on the leader in Chris Beats in what is going to be the final 11 minutes of this race, with Nick Ledecky a ways back. If something should happen with the top 2, he's going to need it to be catastrophic if he wants a shot at victory, as it looks as though it's going to be a mano-a-mano duel between Beats and Webb, with Webb looking, but he'll duck back in line.
And Beats really had to compromise his entry. He was about half a lane to the left, so he really wasn't getting the best apex on entry into the corner, and he might end up paying as a result of that. Stands about 0.3 of a second up on Beats currently as we head into turn 2, so he has a decent gap, and I think it would be a daring overtake for Jesse Webb if he were to attempt it. We're not going to see it this time by, although Webb got incredibly close this time, and now we'll just have to see how this lap traffic ahead will play with these top 2.
Couple of cars up ahead of the leaders. One of them is Scott Snyder. Field's going to be approaching him now. They're already starting to flash the lights at Snyder, who's running in the 27th spot, 2 laps down, that they are coming and coming fast. Also up ahead, Derek Carboni, the last car on the lead lap in 24th. It looks as though they're going to be able to clear Scott Snyder here cleanly, and it's not going to upset the apple cart as far as how hard and rough these top 2 are racing. We are watching the final 10 minutes of action for round 5 of the 2021 Pacific Challenge GT3 Series here on Pit Stop TV at Imola. Chris Beats and Jesse Webb, the only 2 winners on the season, proving why they are the drivers to beat in this series, and they are putting on an incredible show at the head of the pack. Who's it going to be?
And I think we've been seeing lap after lap as we head into what is Variante Alta, that this is probably the strongest portion of the racetrack. You said the middle sector of the racetrack is probably where Webb's car is best, and it's been 2 or 3 laps in a row now that he has quite literally been on the rear bumper through those couple of corners here on the circuit, from the downhill run into Aqua Minerale up into Variante Alta, and here coming through Ravaza and then onto the front straightaway is where he seems to lose a little bit of time.
Yeah, and this run out of Ravaza is so important to be able to get the power down, get the launch up towards the main straightaway, and prevent Webb an opportunity to get in the slipstream and pull out and make the pass. They come to the start-finish line here. They'll come through the kink at turn number 1. They will set up for the second corner, the next best braking zone and passing zone, with Beats currently having the edge, and Carboni the next lap car. That may be a factor here as Webb closes up under braking. Carboni, though, not even in the picture just yet for Beats to have to worry about. Meanwhile, Ledecky not closing up from 3rd. Wittendorf, Brunham remain your top 5, but there is more lap traffic ahead. Not just Carboni, who goes out of your frame there on the bottom side of your screen, but there is a couple of other cars that may play a role in how this race ends. But so far, Beats has yet to put a wheel off despite continuous pressure from the point leader Webb.
And with only 8.5 minutes left, we're probably only going to see 5 or 6 laps here, just to give you a little bit of a picture of how many times Christopher Beats is going to have to pull off the defensive moves where we've been seeing him be so strong, such as here, the run downhill into Aqua Minerale, and then up the hill into Variante Alta. Mentioned it 1 lap ago, because this is the portion of the racetrack where Webb is incredibly strong, and he's yet again going to be right up to the rear bumper. Will he have the opportunity this time by? We'll go on board with Beats and see. It looks like he's not going to attempt a side-by-side overtake at all going through that component of the circuit. And I think at this point, you might want to be setting up for a run on the straightaway. But we've also been seeing that his straightaway pace hasn't been quite as strong over this portion of the race.
It looks as though that if Beats can survive that portion of the racetrack up to the Variante Alta, that's all that he needs, because he is so good here through Ravaza. And up onto the main straightaway, he's able to mine this gap that grows now to about 3 car lengths at the start-finish line with 7.5 minutes to go. Let's take this opportunity to thank another partner on the Pit Stop TV platform. How about Permanent Makeup and Cryo in Maine? We mentioned Valentine's Day right around the corner. This, too, is a great and incredible gift idea for friends, family, or a loved one, because when it comes to your appearance, you deserve the best care that money can buy. At Permanent Makeup and Cryo in Maine, the owner, Ashley Bullier, is a certified micropigmentation specialist who provides professional, safe, and personalized services. Check out their Facebook page or their website, permanentmakeupinmaine.com, to learn more. And you can check them out again on their social media services to see all that they have available. Again, the website, permanentmakeupinmaine.com, and you can call or go online to book your consultation today. 6.5 minutes to go, and it looks as though Beats has been able to fend off the challenge for now, but that lap traffic is starting to draw closer to your leader.
So far today, I think we've been seeing a lot of respect from the lap traffic, but that's not a guarantee. Each time you come up to an individual driver, it's really up to them whether or not they want to play nice or not. But I think the unpredictability factor is, of course, a lot of fun here. We'll just have to see as we continue to maneuver through these cars. But this is going to be tough because we are coming up on 2 cars, and they might reach these 2 cars before we get to the front straightaway.
And a couple of these cars have some racing to do themselves. Derek Carboni and Curtis Jones, the next 2 cars in line, they are racing for a position, albeit 23rd. Jones, who was involved in an incident today, not running up to par with what he is traditionally accustomed to, being that he is top 5 in the championship points coming into this race. But the battle for the lead starts to intensify again. Webb with a big run, perhaps the best he's had on the main straightaway, setting up towards turn number 2, the next best braking zone, an opportunity to pass. No way, though, is he close enough to get the job done, but he is probably trying to force a bit of an error on Beats' part to let that door open on its own. He closes it down to a car length here and hits the curbing, and this is where Jesse Webb has been so strong tonight. Remember, he was the fastest in practice by 0.4 of a second, took pole by 0.2 of a second. He certainly doesn't want to settle for runner-up. He wants to go 4 for 5 on the season, and he's got to run as they come off the corner.
Nearly side by side as we head through Tosa, and in a championship battle, it's so tight, every position is going to matter as we get down to the final round of the championship. So not only do you want the bragging rights of getting that W, but you also want to think long-term if you're Jesse Webb. And I'm sure he's a driver who wants to go out there and prove that, yes, he has the highest I rating, and he also wants to be the best driver in the points championship. So he's relatively close here, and heading up the hill, as long as he gets a good exit, this might be his best overtaking opportunity yet, as that traffic continues to draw nearer and nearer.
The Variante Alta is going to be up next as we see Beats still about a car length up ahead, and that lap traffic, they're going to catch that car in a terrible spot. The pair of drivers are trying to get around, Carboni as well as Curtis Jones, the next 2 cars in line, as Beats starts to lag in and out of the server just a little bit there. Hopefully that car will stay online and on track for the remainder of this race, and they're going to catch this traffic hopefully on the main straightaway. They're coming through Ravazza now. Carboni about a car length ahead of your leader, Beats, as they come up towards the start-finish line. Carboni's going to give way. What a job by Carboni there to yield to the front runners. Now what will Curtis Jones do as the top 2 are clear?
We see the flashing of the lights from Chris Beats, but we're going to get to the braking zone. He's going to dip to the inside. That was a little bit dangerous, a little bit sketchy, but they get the job done. It looked for a moment like Beats was going to overcook the entry into turn 3, the first right-hander, but he gets the job done, doesn't really compromise much time there. So an excellent job all around. Not a loss of pace from any of those drivers, whether it be the lap car. It would have been Curtis Jones who goes a lap down from the 23rd position, or your race leader. So an excellent job all around.
Laps averaging about 1 minute and 43 seconds on average for the front runners. So we will see if we get about 2 laps potentially to go when they get back to the start-finish line. There are 2 more lap cars ahead of the leaders that could be a factor. Christian Gerges as well as Alan Roth are the next 2 cars that the leaders may come by. They too on the lead lap and racing for 21st and 22nd respectively. But this is where Jesse Webb has been so strong. Look at him close up here. He got within a car like that time as they came through the corner, and Beats is trying to hold on. He's done a masterful job of being able to withstand the pressure, but Webb is now on a charge knowing that time is running out, and he closes again under braking as they come through the Variante Alta.
And as you said, Eric, the variables will also begin to diminish and diminish. They will probably reach Curtis Jones, or rather Christian Gerges, but Alan Roth, Alan Roth is only a second head of Gerges, so there's a distinct possibility that they might reach the 2 of them. It all depends on how many laps we have here coming to the end. Seemed like it was a pretty strong exit there for Jesse Webb. We'll have to see what kind of run he gets here along the front straightaway as we head into Tamburello on what could be the 2 to go, could be the 3 to go. A little bit hard to tell yet.
They come to the line with about 2 minutes and 6 seconds to go. So let's see if we get the white flag next time by. It looks as though that Webb's trying to fill up the mirror a little bit. How about Nick Ledecky try to close up? I bet he knows that these two are battling pretty hard. He wants to be close enough if there's contact to take advantage. You see the lap traffic there heading up to Villeneuve that time. And Webb is now as close as he's been pretty much for the top spot since we've been monitoring this battle. He gets a run here off the corner. They're going to be heading up for Tosa, the left-hander, and it's Beats taking the defensive line on the inside as they come off the turn. Webb's got a run.
They go up into Piratello. They're going to be side by side. Can he get enough alongside Chris Beats to be able to maintain the inside line? He's going to do it. And now we have to look for the crossover. The crossover will be attempted there by Beats, and they'll be side-by-side going into Aqua Minerale. This is going to be incredibly tight heading up the hill.
They might have banged doors that time, and Webb is going to be able to squeeze out in front for the race lead as they come through Aqua Minerale there with the white flag potentially waiting, but Beats is not done yet. This has been where Chris Beats has been so strong all race long. The exit of the Variante Alta chicane through Ravazza and up onto the main straightaway in what may be the final lap of this race. But Beats, though, falling back about 3 car lengths on Webb, who now has the lead.
When Beats pulled off his overtakes on Webb early in the race, that we saw that his car was incredibly strong in the straightaways, so this might be his last opportunity. We have to see if that Lamborghini will provide him excellent slipstream as we head down the front straightaway and we head into Tamburello. I think we will be getting the white flag here. We'll cross the timing line. We'll have to wait and see as timing and scoring updates. This will, in fact, be the white flag. This may be the last chance for Chris Beats as we head into the braking zone.
He's got to run, and Webb's going to defend. Beats looks outside. Oh, a bobble there by Webb. He goes well off the racetrack. Here comes Chris Beats for the lead, and he's got the top spot as they come out of turn 4.
And second place Jesse Webb might have a slowdown penalty as a result, and that might mean he'll lose additional time. The important thing for Beats, he's cleared by about a second at this point, and I think this means he can, as long as he just hits his marks, he will be home free. But now there is ultimately going to be a lot of pressure. It's been several races. I think it's been 3 races since he's been at victory lane, so it would mean oh so much, and he'd be able to close up a massive points margin with this.
So far, we got a crash coming up to the main straightaway. That's Sven Hartman, who is running up towards the top 10, who has had some problems and gone into the wall. But the race leaders on the far side of the course, what an incredible job. That was perhaps the one and only mistake we've seen Jesse Webb truly make on track all season long. Chris Beats, who was not the fastest car in practice. He was not the fastest car in qualifying. He also was not the championship point leader, and he has gone to victory lane at this point in the season only once. Webb trying to do all that he can to close up for one final opportunity with just a handful of turns left to go. Webb is going to try to make this thing interesting here, but I believe he is going to run out of time. Coming into tonight's racing event, the worst that Chris Beats has finished was only second. The problem is it was 3 times to his closest competitor. He is not going to be second today. He'll be coming to the line here. Second win of 2021. Chris Beats takes round 5 at Imola and wins over the point leader Jesse Webb in one of the most thrilling races of the season.
That was truly remarkable. 60 minutes of flat-out, all-out racing between those drivers. Absolutely brilliant drive. And now we'll backtrack a little bit. Jackson Lowry has to go through Ravazza here and defend against Trevor Anderson. Anderson does stand about 2 or 3 tenths of a second back. So as we head onto the straightaway, you can give 6th place to Jackson Lowry. But that was absolutely remarkable. The 2 best drivers in the series probably put on the best show we've seen all season. And we're only halfway through the season, and we have a lot of compelling stops here as we go over the last 5 weeks.
Well, the rest of the field comes to the checkered flag. How about Sarah Rabb finally getting the finish that she deserves after running so strong all throughout the season? Sarah Rabb comes across the line in 9th. Taking a look here at the results throughout this season, that is her first top 10 for Sarah Rabb, with Justin Mikhaila trailing in the 10th spot. Ryan Coulter was in the top 10 at one point in this race. He comes to the checkered flag there in 13th spot. The rest of the top 15 to the line, just out of that top 15. David Flanagan in 16th position. Alex King just behind there in 17th spot, with Spencer Vick coming home just behind them. But here is your winner, Chris Beats, in what was one of the most entertaining races we've had all season. We are officially at the halfway point. These two remain hot as far as top two finishes, neither driver finishing worse than second. And they've now shared victories throughout all 5 rounds of the season. But it is Chris Beats who has made a statement here tonight at Imola. What a job and what a drive. Now, before we head to break, and on the other side, we'll have an opportunity to hear from some of our front runners who want to take this opportunity to thank the folks at Whiplash Media. We talked about a couple of our partners here throughout the broadcast. Whiplash Media, not only a partner, it's in fact the parent organization of Pit Stop TV, and they specialize in various sim racing resources, including paint schemes, stream overlays, iRacing camera packs, which you see throughout our broadcast, and so much more. Whiplash Media is also working on their presence in real racing, offering services such as photography, social media management, as well as public relations. To learn more, head on over to whiplash-media.com. So we have a lot to dissect and break down on what was one of the most entertaining races of the season thus far. While Chris Beats celebrates, we're going to step aside, catch our breath. When we come back, we're going to hear from our front runners after an incredible round of racing action at Imola here on Pit Stop TV.
Sound Art is a product that is a speaker and it's art. We combine it together and we call it Sound Art. What makes it so unique that any picture can be your speaker? Sound Art gives you the high quality sound without the ugly speaker. This isn't a picture with a speaker, the picture is the speaker. Just imagine your wedding picture uploaded onto a canvas and now it's speaking 10,000 tunes. I mean, it's a very cool concept. What we like so much about it that you can take anything that means something very special to you, upload it on the canvas, have it hanging up in your room, your balcony, wherever you want to put it, and now it's a speaker. I mean, how cool is that? It's something that we have that and no one has. No one has this product. It's just a great gift to give anybody. It's just a neat concept. Around here we say, art never sounded so good.
After months of quarantine, we're all interested in how we can become our best self. The team at Permanent Makeup and Cryo is here to help you get the flawless makeup look every day without the extra effort or time. When it comes to your appearance, you deserve the best care that money can buy.
Welcome back to Pit Stop TV's coverage of the Pacific Challenge GT3 Series at Imola, the Autodromo Internazionale Enzo E. Dino Ferrari circuit that is famed for so much in the history of motorsports, specifically in Formula One. But tonight, I think we had a race for the ages when it comes to the GT category that showcases a number of drivers from that quadrant of the United States on the Pacific coast. And while we had a lot of people all throughout the Northeast and central part of the United States covered in inches, in some cases feet of snow, I think we had enough action to heat up an entire motorsports competition and fan base, and we proved it here tonight on the platform here on Pit Stop TV. Again, I'm Eric Brennan. We joined on the call all night by Trey Shuttlesworth, Emerson Arden. Spectacular job of the production truck, and Corey Rexer was holding it down on social media. We have a lot to unpack. We have a lot of energy in the air, and we are about to hear from some of our front-running finishers, and we will start things off with our winner in Chris Beats, who put on a defensive driving clinic late in the going, battled back from losing the lead, and we now have an opportunity to hear from our winner for the second time this season. And Chris Beets, even though he was second in the championship standings, his worst finish was only second throughout the season. He did pick up the victory back at Road America. This is his second win of the season, and we'll have an opportunity to talk to Chris Beets here as soon as we pull him on over into the broadcast booth. And he is celebrating what was one of the best races and best race finishes that we have had so far in 2021. With that, it is a pleasure now to welcome, by virtue of the winner's interview, Chris Beets. I'll tell you what, Chris, I don't know what it was like behind the cockpit of that race car, but for us, that was a blast. First of all, congratulations on your second win of the season. But I have to ask you, knowing that you were going up against your championship points rival, knowing that Jesse Webb has been on a bit of a roll, how much does this win mean to you, especially being that you know that you were able to outduel and outlast one of the best that you've been going up against so far this season?
Well, first off, thank you. That was tough. Yeah, it's great. It feels great. He's super fast. He's shown that he's had the pace all season. I knew that all the only thing I could do to get ahead of him is either ruffle his feathers and make him uh, force him into a mistake, or to run a perfect strategy, and it all worked out today. And then I did both.
And I'll tell you, it seemed like the pressure was on all race. I mean, was there ever a point where you got to relax despite how close Webb was? I mean, I don't think you guys were separated by more than a second throughout the entire 60-minute event.
No, I was pushing 110% the whole race. The tires are gone by the end of it. It was just I was holding on by my fingernails there.
Now, it's been no surprise that you two have shared the top two as far as race results, championship points, and this is the halfway point of the season. And depending on how all is said and done, once the reviews are done, and if there's any penalty points that end up being assessed, you two are going to remain relatively close in the championship fight. He may have the edge by virtue of the extra win, but you're right in the thick of this thing. How much does this win boost your confidence for the remaining 5 races on the slate?
Yeah, I was kind of getting tired of being the runner-up guy. I don't want that label. But I mean, he is the faster driver almost everywhere. So I have to do something different every race. And so instead of sitting back and trying to save tires and fuel, I just got aggressive earlier on. And he made a mistake. You got to slow down, and I took advantage. And here we are.
There was one specific point in the race that I was a little bit curious as to the strategy. You guys came up on the main straightaway and you caught a lap car that was ducking into the pit area, and I thought for a moment that you were going to duck in as well. Did you call an audible that lap and decide to stay out once more so that lapper didn't hold you down any, or was it the plan all along to come in when you did?
Well, the lap traffic, it all depends on the pace. Sometimes you catch lap traffic that's really slow, and they could cause issues, or they've pitted early and you're catching them that way. I just made a call. I was kind of thinking about going in early, but with that car going in, it changed my mind, and I went to the end of the fuel stint.
Very well may have been the winning move there, or was it perhaps the incredible overtake that you were able to get done on the final lap of the race? Now, you lost the lead coming to the white flag, but you had an incredible run up the main straightaway. You pretty much seemed to be the car to beat on the main straightaway heading up towards that portion of the racetrack. Was that your plan all along once you lost that lead momentarily? Did you know that that was going to be the point in the racetrack where you had to get the job done? Or is it all a blur at this point? And you were just, pure adrenaline?
A bit of everything. I think I knew he was a little slow on the straights, but I knew if I gave him a little bit of pressure, I could be there. Come the exit, I definitely wasn't going to outbrake him, but he seemed like he braked in the right spot. I don't know if he caught ABS or what, but he dragged too far, went off track.
By far the most exciting and entertaining race of the season, but we anticipate many, many more coming down for the remaining 5 races. Chris, before we let you go, we understand that you have a lot of partners involved to make this possible for you. Who do you have to thank for this victory?
As always, my wife, she's at work and she doesn't get to root me on from there, but yep, my lovely lady, Skull Sim Gear, always for the free gear I got from the first season of racing in the Pacific Challenge, and then uh, man, that PSM guys again. I don't think I'd be as quick and as competitive if it wasn't for all those guys.
Well, Chris, thank you for the incredible show, an incredible display of talent on tonight's racing action. And we want to wish you the best of luck going forward, especially next week when round number 6 kicks off at WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna Seca. Congrats on the win again, my friend. Win number 2 on the season. Hopefully there's a few more left in the bank as we continue to wind down this championship series.
Yep. Thanks a lot, guys.
And again, that is Chris Beats celebrating win number 2 in dramatic fashion. And now we'll turn it on over to Trey Shuttlesworth, who was with our runner-up and point leader coming into tonight's races, Jesse Webb.
Hi.
Hey, Jesse, thanks for joining us. I'm sure it's disappointing to come away with second place after how hard of a charge you put on today. But what are your initial thoughts getting out of the virtual cockpit with a runner-up finish tonight?
Of course I'm disappointed, but to be honest, I didn't have the pace again this weekend, kind of like Road America. We just never found a setup that really worked with the Audi that we felt was strong in kind of all aspects of what you need at this track. And it didn't help that early on I got some floor damage somehow going over one of the sausage curbs. Just one of the iRacing specials that they do. But so I was down on pace on the straightaway every lap with Beats, which kind of sucked. But I knew if I were to make a move, I had to make it at the end. And he was able to pressure me enough. And I just fell into the mistake, broke a tad bit too late, and sent her right off the track.
So you brought up a good point about that floor damage, and that it did seem like you were slightly down on the straightaway for much of the race. Did that affect your driving style through the portions of the racetrack that were very corner heavy, as opposed to the front straightaway or the run after the first braking complex?
Well, yeah, it definitely did. I had to kind of adapt to it because I knew I needed Beats draft to stay with them. So I had to kind of push it a little harder in the corners, which then inevitably it wore my tires down a lot more than I would have liked. So I was having a little bit of troubles at the end keeping the grip with me, but it did affect my driving style in the way that I couldn't make the pass a little earlier as I would have liked and tried to pull a gap, and it's just unfortunate.
And then to branch off a little bit, just in terms of pit strategy, was your strategy basically to stretch the fuel tank thin, or were you looking to just pit with race leader Chris Beats?
We were both completely out of fuel at that point, so it was just to go as long as we possibly could to keep maintaining those fast laps and not lose any time to Ludecky behind.
All right, thank you, Jesse. And then looking ahead past this round, does this change your mindset as we continue forward with this season, going into what will now be the second half of the season?
No, not at all. I think Imola was probably the last track that I really didn't know. The rest of them, I've kind of got a basic understanding of how the track works, and I won't be coming into this weekend blind.
Will there be any special preparations at Laguna Seca, or is it probably going to be somewhat conservative resources looking ahead to the Nürburgring?
Laguna Seca is a track I've run a lot of laps at, so I've already kind of know everything that you need to know about that track, so I'll just do practice with the VRS sprint races throughout the week and see what goes from there.
All right. Thank you, Jesse. I think those are all the questions that I have. Otherwise, is there anyone you want to thank out there for your strong second place finish tonight?
Well, definitely PSM for pushing each other and making each other get faster lap times. My mom and dad for letting me do the race. SureFit for being my sponsor. And yeah.
All right. Thank you, Jesse. Thanks for joining us, and hope to see you next week then at Laguna Seca.
Sounds good. Thank you.
So that's Jesse Webb. Finishes second place. It is, of course, disappointing after, I mean, we just learned the fact that he had a little bit of floor damage, and it seemed like he was down a little bit on the straightaways throughout. So all around, brilliant drive comes up just short. And now, Eric, you'll have third place Nick Ledecky.
Thanks a lot, Trey. And now we welcome Nick Ledecky back to our broadcast booth here to talk about, unfortunately, Nick, yet another third place finish. And granted, this is the third time that you've been in third place in the checkered flag of one of these races. And it's not necessarily indicative of the pace that you have shown throughout the 4 races you've been able to compete in the 5 races we've done so far. How are you feeling right now after this third place finish, knowing that at times you were turning laps that was much faster than the competition just after the early race contact? Just didn't have an opportunity to get back up there. What are your thoughts after a third place run tonight?
Well, my hopes were high when I saw how much quicker I was than the 2 drivers ahead of me. And as I started to close the gap, I thought I would catch him, but after pits, that didn't end up happening. But yeah, sitting on the third spot of the podium multiple times doesn't really feel great, so I'm hoping to work my way further up as the season goes on.
Now, early in the race, it seemed like there was a lot of intensity to try to get to the front by drivers in the top 5. And it looked like there might have been a little bit of contact coming through the opening couple of corners. I believe it was on lap 3 or 4 that got you out of shape. How close of a call was that for you in the cockpit?
Honestly, those types of things just sort of go by in a flash. It's almost like it happens and you were just on autopilot. So I didn't really realize how close I was to actually wrecking the car completely until I went back and saw the replay. And I almost ended my whole race right there.
From our perspective, it was a spectacular save. So great job by you to be able to hang on to that thing. And then once you survive that, the quick lap times just kept coming. I mean, you erased a 5+ second deficit, got it down to under 3 seconds, was inching towards 1 second, and then the pit stops came. And at that point, you ended up on the pit lane 1 lap sooner than your other 2 competitors. Was that the plan all along, to kind of go off strategy in hopes that it may work out in your favor? Or looking back, would you have done things a little bit differently if you could hit the redo button?
I don't think I would have done anything differently. I don't know why I lost so much time in pits, but I took less fuel than I know Chris Beats did. And with that being said, it looked like there was some sort of pit service time that I had to wait 5 seconds for, and I'm not sure why. But no, I would not have changed the strategy. I think if it wasn't for being held up for I'm not even sure what reason, I think I would have been in contention to win.
Once pit stops ended, you were charging back up towards the front of the field. I mean, at that point, were you kind of ready to settle for third, or were you kind of hoping things would get a little bit physical amongst those two?
The whole time I was thinking that things were going to get physical, and as I saw my relative Jesse's distance to me start to drop with, I think that was on the last lap, I was hoping, honestly, as bad as this sounds, that they had taken each other out or gotten tangled up in some way. But Jesse just missed his breaking point, and it didn't cost him much at all.
Well, it was a great race all throughout. Wish you were up there and being a part of it, mixing it up with them towards the end stages of that one. But a third-place finish is something to be proud of. Nick, who helps you make all this happen and run these Monday night shows and put together the pace that you've been able to display week in and week out?
I would definitely say my parents for sparking this whole passion for motorsports. And then from there, the people that are currently standing behind me, my family and friends, rather, that are watching, and my girlfriend especially, for sacrificing the time.
Well, we appreciate you being a part of this series. Certainly elevates the competition level for sure. Third podium in 4 races. Hopefully there's many more in store for you for the remainder of 2021. Nick Ledecky, congratulations on another top 3 run. This one coming on a very tough track at Imola.
Thank you very much.
And again, that was Nick Ledecky. That was all of our top 3 finishers in today's racing action. And Trey Shuttlesworth, in hearing Jesse Webb talk about the potential floor damage, that may explain why he was laboring a little bit down that long straightaway in the lead up towards the best passing zone at turn 2. But I am so amped up after that finish. That was some of the best racing that you could ever imagine. And I honestly would admit that coming into tonight's race, I did not think that this track could produce that quality of competition. And I think we have to owe it all to the drivers. That was incredible.
Yeah, going off the small sample size that I have of events here, it seems like a circuit that it's incredibly difficult to overtake at. But it seems like if you get the right combination of, in this case, you have absolutely brilliant drivers. GT3 cars tend to lend themselves very well to very close racecraft, and then Imola just played a very good host to a lot of overtaking opportunities. And you combine all those things, and we had an absolutely excellent product. There was a lot of compelling fights throughout the field, throughout the entire evening. And I think the really awesome thing is that for the first time, I think we got to see an outright duel for the lead from start to finish this season. And I'm sure it won't be the last time we see it. We'll have 5 additional rounds. And look, in addition to what we've seen already, we've officially surpassed the halfway point. Next round is going to be Laguna Seca, and that's going to be a really different beast. It's not going to be a track that's a whole lot shorter by any means, but I have the feeling that it's going to feel a lot more congested as a race car driver.
And we look at the remaining 5 races on the slate. WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna Seca next Monday night. Then we go back to an endurance race at the Nürburgring, February 15th. Then we head on over to Sebring International Raceway, another endurance race, the last one on the calendar for round number 8 on February 22nd. And the final 2 races to decide this championship moving on to the month of March, March 1st. That's going to be at the Phillip Island Circuit for round 9. And we will wrap things up at another famed Formula One Grand Prix layout track. This one, the Suzuka International Race Course, on March 8th, the season finale, all of which coming at you here on Pit Stop TV. Now, before we go, we want to give one more opportunity to thank those who make this possible. First, we'll start with the league sponsors, Bemke Cinematography, Liveries by Sarah Rabb, and Tam Livery, all of which step up in a big way with the Pacific Challenge GT3 Series, many of which offering up additional opportunities to take home some prize packages in the points when the standings are all said and done for both the pros and the amateurs. We'll see how that all pans out, but it is thanks to Benke Cinematography, Liveries by Sarah Rabb, and Tam Livery for their involvement for the Pacific Challenge GT3 Series, as it certainly gives these drivers a lot to race for sure. Here at Pit Stop TV, our top partners as well, Tucson Sound Art. Again, Valentine's Day, less than 2 weeks away. This is a spectacular gift opportunity for you to take your picture and your music and blend them together for the best of both worlds. Any image you want, any image that you have. It could be of a beautiful car that was designed or taken by Bemke Cinematography, Liveries by Sarah Rabb, or Tam Livery, whatever you want. Send it over to our friends at Tucson Sound Art. They'll put it on a beautiful custom-built canvas. They will insert a high-quality built-in Bluetooth speaker that you can utilize to listen to the call of races here on Pit Stop TV, or for music or your favorite podcast or what have you. And again, that is thanks to our friends at Tucson Sound Art. Visit their website, TucsonSoundArt.com, to learn more. And the kicker here is use the promo code PitStopTV, all one word, at checkout, and you can save 10% off your purchase. Again, TucsonSoundArt.com. The newest partner to Pit Stop TV platform, Race Pace, something that I would certainly need if I was to try to take on some of these drivers at a track like Imola. If you ever wish that you had a race engineer on speed dial, well, now you can, thanks to Race Pace. It is a full driver development service and setup shop, truly all in one. You can work with Tyler, who is a real-world race engineer, and set up your game before your next race. So if you're not really a setup guy on the sim, you just like to get in and drive, you spend a lot of time on the fixed racing portion of the sim, and you want to move on into some more of the open setup items that are out there, or some leagues that may be a little bit more open on the setup and design range, Tyler is the one to call at Race Pace. Again, pick up the pace at Race Pace. We also want to thank Permanent Makeup and Cryo in Maine. Here's another Valentine's Day gift idea, or a just because gift idea, or perhaps, especially now that things are starting to get back to, we'll call it a relative normal, and some events and ceremonies are going to be happening in the more traditional form. This is the best way to make sure that you look your best, because when it comes to your appearance, you deserve the best care that money can buy. Permanent Makeup and Cryo in Maine, the owner, Ashley Bullier, not only longtime supporter of Pit Stop TV, but also a certified micropigmentation specialist who provides personal, safe, and professional services. Now, contact Permanent Makeup and Cryo in Maine at permanentmakeupinmaine.com, all one word, or you can call them and text them. The number is available on the website or on their social media Facebook page, because if you're looking for the best solutions for your permanent makeup concerns, Permanent Makeup and Cryo in Maine is who you need to contact. Call them today and book your consultation. Again, permanentmakeupinmaine.com. And lastly, of course, Whiplash Media, the parent company to our Pit Stop TV organization, specializing in so many sim racing resources, including paint schemes, stream overlays, iRacing camera packs that we get to display throughout our coverage of the Pacific Challenge GT3 Series, and so much more. They also have a presence in real racing that is continuing to grow. As a matter of fact, you can keep your eyes peeled there for many real racing items that are going to unfold throughout 2021. They also are involved in photography, social media management, public relations. The list goes on and on. To learn more or to see some of the work that they have done, visit whiplash-media.com. So now that we've paid the bills, let's take this opportunity to see how they came to the checkered flag in tonight's contest. And Trey, we talked to our top 3 finishers. It was Beat, Webb, Ledecky, the front 3, but there was some great racing all the way throughout this pack and throughout the rest of the top 10.
Yeah, I think that was the awesome thing about this race. That we did see other rounds that weren't quite as compelling in terms of back and forth. Say going to Belle Isle, where drivers really had to battle the racetrack more than their competitors. But this was a really good combination of a tough racetrack with a raceable racetrack, really racy racetrack in terms of being able to overtake. And like you said, there was a lot of back and forth throughout much of the top 10. Sarah Rab, I think, was a driver that had to make her way into the top 10. Same with drivers like Alex Trevor Anderson. Chris Brunnemer made up a couple of spots after a bit of an off. And then there was, I believe Nick Ledecky also didn't initially start in third. I believe he was a driver who was starting in third. I will have to look at the initial results. Oh no! Oh yes, he did start in third, and then there was a swap up between the 1-2. So all through the top 10, there was a lot of mixing up throughout the running.
Yeah, so you see there your top 10, Wittendorf, Brunnemer, Lowry, Anderson, Alex Trevor, one of his best runs of the season, and Sarah Rab. I think I speak on behalf of everybody involved in this series. We are also happy. We're unbiased here in the broadcast booth, but we are also happy that there is finally a result to go with the pace in which you have had throughout this season. First top 10 of the year for Sarah Rab. And Justin Mikhailo got up in the top 10 relatively late in the going, through the pit stop exchange, and stayed there. Mikhail Ruderbusch, one spot shy of a top 10 effort in what would have been his second of the 2021 season, bouncing back from the spin that he had throughout the race. Jimmy Allen, a quiet 12th. Ryan Coulter was pretty much about 15th to 9th throughout the night. Final resting spot was in 13th. Sven Hartman, BC Voigt, 14th and 15th, while David Flanagan and Alexander King take you through 16th and 17th, respectively. Spencer Vick was involved in an incident tonight, the driver who entered the night, the highest running amateur in championship points, 18th on the grid at the conclusion of this race. John McClintock and Mick Blue, your top 20. Rest of the field starts to bring us into the heartbreak section of some of the racing action. But first, the miracle. Alan Roth and his fan club were tuning in tonight. One of the last cars in the lead lap, one spot shy of a top 20, but a clean race overall for Alan Roth, while Christian Gerges was the final car on the lead lap at the checkers in 22nd. Derek Carboni and Curtis Jones both did a great job clearing the pathway for the leaders at the end of this race, 23rd and 24th. George Tacek in the 25th position. Randall Ayers, the final car, one lap down. Jason Frisk was 27. Scott Snyder in 28th spot. Corey Peters, a driver who we expected to see up towards the front, 6th in championship points, had some misfortune early in this one, made it home in 29th, 7 laps down, and Patrick Herring takes you through the 30th finishing position. Brady Lubenow caught up in an early crash, another competitor we expect to see running up towards the front of the field. Gavin Cohn also caught up in one of the early incidents that we covered. Michael Del Sala, 33rd. Tyler Langenberg, after taking flight to the moon, was 34th. James Hansen, perhaps the biggest heartbreak of the day, third place driver in championship points, caught up in a very early accident while battling for third. And Tyler Campbell rounds out your 36 cars that came to the checkered flag of today's racing competition at Imola. Well, that's going to do it for our coverage here tonight of the Pacific Challenge GT3 Series. And I'll tell you what, we are starting to look forward to all that is in store for the rest of this season. We'll be back here with this series next Monday night at WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna Seca. There's a lot of racing still to come on the platform. Tomorrow night, Operation E Motorsports, race number 2 at Road America here on Pit Stop TV. Wednesday night, we'll be on the ovals with Bluegrass iRacing Series at New Hampshire. Friday night, more twisty action. LTAC for their 4th race of the season at Sonoma. We're taking the weekend off, but we'll be back with another doubleheader next Monday on Pit Stop TV with the BRP iRacing Series at Knoxville, and then the Pacific Challenge GT3 Series, as we said, at Laguna Seca, take you through the next week of racing action on Pit Stop TV. Be sure to check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube. Tell your friends, tell your family, as we will be bringing you more exciting action all across the sim for the rest of 2021. With that, on behalf of our incredible team, Trey Shuttlesworth, who joined me in the broadcast booth tonight, Emerson Arden, who did an amazing job with our production elements tonight, and Corey Rexford, who always holds it down across all our social media platforms, I'm Eric Brennan. Thank you all so much for joining us, and we will see you next time here on Pit Stop TV. Good night, everybody.
After months of quarantine, we're all interested in how we can become our best self. The team at Permanent Makeup and Cryo is here to help you get the flawless makeup look every day without the extra effort or time. When it comes to your appearance, you deserve the best care that money can buy.
Sound Art is a product that is a speaker and it's art. We combine it together and we call it Sound Art. What makes it so unique that any picture can be your speaker? Sound Art gives you the high quality sound without the ugly speaker. This isn't a picture with a speaker, the picture is the speaker. Just imagine your wedding picture uploaded onto a canvas and now it's speaking 10,000 tunes. I mean, it's a very cool concept. What we like so much about it that you can take anything that means something very special to you, upload it on the canvas, have it hanging up in your room, your balcony, wherever you want to put it, and now it's a speaker. I mean, how cool is that? It's something that we have that and no one has. No one has this product. It's just a great gift to give anybody. It's just a neat concept. Around here we say, art never sounded so good.